Coming up on today's show, training camp is kicking off across the NFL. Rookies are reporting, veterans soon to follow, which means we are about to be inundated with tons and tons of information across every single training camp in the NFL. What do we do with this, and how do we use this to our advantage to become better drafters down the stretch? Find the keys to the season and the league winners, maybe some of the guys who we weren't drafting before who become awesome picks. We've had tons and tons of examples of this over the course of the fantasy football history, but especially best ball history with Kyren Williams and there's a Zach Moss mention on today's show, Jordan Mason and Bucky Irving and all sorts of guys who popped up, Puka Nacua, during training camp that we started to get information that maybe we should be drafting these guys. How do we find those guys? And how do we avoid the hype machines that's just Twitter highlight clips, and, oh, he's running with the ones, but what does that really mean? Myself, Erik Beimfohr, and Pat Kerrane from Legendary Upside get into all of that, everything that you need to know about how to process training camp for fantasy football and especially for your best ball drafts. We cover that on today's show. So let's go ahead and get on into it. All right, Pat. We are almost out of the dead zone of the calendar, if you will, the dead zone of the fantasy football draft schedule. I believe this weekend in some spots, rookies are starting to report. And then about a week later, you'll get the veterans starting to report. So we're really close to training camp, which I'm really, really excited about. I couldn't possibly care less about discussing all these same things that we keep talking about over and over and over with no more new news. At least Brandon Ayuk stopped spiraling out of control on social
media.
What
if you just got sent back to May?
I think.
What if you woke up and it was like May 3rd?
I don't think I could do it. On a list of things you would rather do, the going back to May and having to suffer through 2.5 more months of the same fucking thing sounds like
it's Groundhog torture. Day, but you get like months. It's not a day. It's
Groundhog 2.5 months of talking about the same fantasy football things over and over. Like I'm so ready for the, I don't even care what it is. Just something new, please.
If you woke up and it was May 3rd, would you draft again? No. Or would you assume, because you'll never see the results of the drafts that you already did, would you assume that you're now in a loop and your drafts are just wasted time? Yeah. Or would you draft thinking maybe this time the loop will end?
I would. So this is a really, I love this question. For sure, the first time I would just start drafting again and be like, okay.
I think you draft one more time.
One more, right? Because I can't guarantee that it's a loop. Yeah. I went back in time, but I can't guarantee that it's a loop. Maybe I'm just going to relive this thing again. But if we went back again to May 3rd, I'm like, just end me.
Well, I'm going on vacation at that. No, at that point, I'll see you. I'm going to.
Yeah. So does my bank account get to restart every time? Right? Like, can I just spend my? So like I could then just spend 2.5 months spending my entire net worth and traveling the world. So we could turn this into a good thing.
Well, except one of the times it might not loop.
Yeah. So that's the problem. Is like
you don't want to go too crazy.
Yeah. So I can't spend the entire I'm not like mortgaging my future to buy a yacht, or whatever, and go somewhere. But I would definitely spend a lot of my money. But then, the one time it doesn't end, the one time it's like, oh, you're actually going to continue on with life now instead of going back to the most miserable months for the fantasy football calendar.
What if you, you're like, all right, screw it. Like, I'm going to Thailand. I'm just gonna bounce around, do all this stuff. Got some extra money to spend. I'm not gonna be drafting. And then when like you go to sleep on your way to this awesome vacation, you wake up and it's May 3rd again.
Oh no.
The universe is telling you have to
even worse. That's even worse. Like you booked the flights, you booked whatever flights. You're gonna do. You're going to sleep, you're all excited. You're like, okay, I figured this loop thing out, right? I'm gonna maximize this. And then the loop changes. It's literally just a loop of making you miserable,
making you
sucking
draft.
the joy out of your.
You can't not draft.
But we're we're about to be out of this, and unfortunately, no, I didn't take a trip to Thailand or anywhere in the last couple of months. I have been talking fantasy football and drafting fantasy football teams for months on end. But I mean, obviously, we get excited in May. It's just kind of like July. Once July hits, it's
time for training camp. Is really what it is. I've enjoyed drafting.
Yep.
Do I want to draft with all the same information again that I currently have? No.
Yeah.
I would like new information. That sounds like more fun.
100%. And we will, of course, both just Pat over at Leg Up and me over at Spike Week will be reacting to all this stuff in real time and on this pod and all that different kind of stuff. But before it gets here, we thought it would be a good idea to talk about okay, how do we get ready for this? Because the crazy thing that's happened, even since we started recording this, or even since the olden days of, we told the old ship chasing war story and stuff, I think last week or whatever, so much as we talk about things changing, in best ball and fantasy football, so much has changed in the reporting of the news that happens over the summer. I mean, we've said this before, but we have access to snaps with the ones, count of snaps with the ones, how many times did Patrick Mahomes target Rashee Rice, today in 7-on-7s and 11-on-11s. We have so much access now to most teams, not all of them, but to most teams, that it's you're straight drinking from a fire hose. And while we talk a lot about waiting for information on guys, that is true. You can also sometimes trick yourself into thinking you're gaining information that's really just sort of bogus practice reports. And I don't mean bogus like they're lying. I just mean not everything that you're going to hear over the next 2 months, it should change the way that you draft or approach a player or a team or whatever. Frankly, most of it probably doesn't, but we do end up getting stuff that's super changes. The entire outlook of the fantasy season is going to change in the next 2 months. We don't necessarily know what it's all going to be, but it's going to happen. But we have to decipher what matters and what doesn't.
Yeah, and I think it's tricky because there's stuff that really matters, and you basically want to go hard in the paint. You're just I'm boxing out my opponents to get this player who is one of the keys to best ball, and then actually ends up being one of the keys to best ball. We're going to get that stuff. Then you're going to get stuff where there's some signal to it, but it gets wildly overblown, or at least maybe even if not fully overblown, you really have to start paying a lot for it. Emeka Egbuka would be kind of the positive example where there was very clearly a signal to the camp that he was putting together and standing out as a rookie in a way that is unusual and bullish. And, I think did have some pretty strong correlation to, his role last year. And at the same time, he became a lot more expensive. So, that can be tricky where you're okay, well, how much more is this information actually worth? Because the market thinks it's worth a lot more. And, it was worth some more. So how much are you willing to pay? And then the problem with that type of player is you do get guys like Ricky Pearsall and stuff where they're getting similar hype, and Matthew Golden got hype, it's he's going to have a role right away and he's their number one and all that stuff. And then it doesn't materialize really at all with Golden. And then Pearsall somewhere in the middle where he was a starter for them. Wasn't, the best run out for him overall. But then also is what is Pearsall? I tend to think he's kind of a solid outside real life wide receiver, but maybe not a fantasy needle mover. Jury's not, jury's still out there a little bit, but last year's hype campaign, I think, got people paying too much for him. I think that is fair to say.
As someone who drafted him, I continued to draft him. I totally agree.
Calvin Ridley a few years ago, if people remember, he was going in the 4th round prior to training camp and ended up going at the 2-3 turn, even to the late second by the end, because people were just really excited about how he looked in camp and that he was going to have this big role. That was pretty much a disaster, taking him in the second. So, there's that type of stuff where it's like, I don't think that there is nothing to some of those type of like hype trains, but what I would say about those types of hype trains is like, they happened on players where like we didn't actually learn much new about what their role in the offense was likely to be. Like we're talking about 2 first-round picks, and it's like they're going to have a role right away. It's like, well, they went in the first round.
I hope so.
They probably will. Yeah. Like even if it's not week 1, like they'll have a role, unless they're bad, they'll have a role like early in the season and then build on that probably. So that doesn't really change. Like we're not shifting off our prior there on first-round picks to a huge extent. Like I said with the Book, I mean, I think it was still bullish, but like how much of a bull signal are you actually getting there? And then with Ridley, like they brought him in, they traded for him. They're like very excited for him to be their wide receiver 1. And then they're like, wow, he looks like their wide receiver 1. It's like, well, yeah, that's why he's there. And it's like, yeah, he's making some cool catches or some highlight videos, but like paying for highlight videos is pretty risky. Pearsall was, kind of similar, where he was our first-round pick 2 years ago. It was crowded. It wasn't crowded anymore. And, Ayuk's coming off an injury. He ends up never playing, of course. Pearsall still doesn't smash, which, you think he was set up, right? And so anyway, it's just like, yeah, it's Pearsall and Jennings was like kind of doing this holdout thing. So it's really just Pearsall. It's like Pearsall's the only guy with a pulse at camp right now. And I bet he looks good.
Yeah.
But
it was him and Jordan Watkins and stuff. Like, so of course he looks good. Yeah.
Of course he looks good. But I definitely, we moved up on Pearsall a bit last summer. It's like the market got really hot on him in a way that was kind of hard to follow. And I think on those types of players, I'm okay ending up fading them where I don't feel like I'm learning a lot. Like for your okay, so your first round pick from 2024 is the only wide receiver who's actually healthy in that camp that has any kind of pedigree whatsoever, and he looks really good. That's good. It's better than him not looking good.
Right, exactly. It's not bad.
Not amazing. Yeah.
But we might mistake the not bad news for really bullish news.
Super bullish news. Like, let's pay 3 rounds more than we were a month ago for this guy.
Just because it wasn't bad. Right.
Like literally, like I think he went from like the 8th to the 5th or something.
He did.
Yeah.
Him and Ibuka, I remember, because I was taking him in like the 8th, 7th.
Maybe it was 7th to the 5th. Yeah.
And then they moved up to the 4-5, like 4-5 turn range, both of those guys.
Yeah.
Last year. And like it's sort of
Ibuka, I was like a little bit more on board.
It's easier with the rookie.
It's easier with the rookie. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love that you started here, because I think the overwhelming majority of like information that we're going to get is hype. And it's also easy to disregard and say, and I've probably said this in the past, mistakenly, like, just don't worry about that hype stuff, right? It is, but it's kind of true. Like, it's these beat writers' job to hype these guys up. Like, that's what they're paid to do. You know what I mean? Like, this guy looks great at camp, and he probably does. But it's their job to be like, tell the fans and get the fans excited about the players. They also want to tell the truth, right? So they're not going to straight up lie most of the time, but you're going to get like, right. And like the Twitter highlight packages, right? Like, oh, look at this sick catch that this guy made. We got that for 2 years for Keon Coleman. Now the guy goes after pick 200, right? Because it was like, we're getting look at these highlights from Keon Coleman catching touchdowns from Josh Allen in camp. And it's like, that's great. Because again, it's not bad that that's happening. No one's saying it's bad, but we're mistaking the this isn't bad. Like, it's great that you're making plays in practice, but is that ultimately going to lead to fantasy points? And does that tangibly change anything about your profile as a fantasy pick, is where we need to decipher that. And it's difficult because, like you said, there are times where this sort of hype train is relevant, and we should maybe move the guy up and we should care about what's happening here, but we have to figure out what's that line and how do we toe this. Like, don't just fall into that trap of the hype, but also don't just completely ignore everything that you're seeing either. And that little middle ground is like really freaking difficult because of, like I said, we're getting inundated with so much information that it's really easy to ignore some stuff because there's so much out there, or miss it, frankly. And it's also really easy to fall for the traps because you're getting fucking slapped in the face every single day with these like highlight videos, and this guy had 10 targets from Brock Purdy or whatever. It's like it's very easy as a human, you know, who's emotional and flawed to fall into these traps. And it happens every single year, not just from us, but like in the market. You know, the market falls for these traps annually, every single year.
I think another thing that happens is there's kind of a certainty element where it's like, you know, I'm streaming a lot throughout the summer, and you get people commenting like, oh, didn't you see this? Like you're saying you like this guy, but didn't you see that it's actually the other guy? And it's like, yeah, I did. That doesn't mean it is the other guy. It means, right? It's like there was a news report that it might be the other guy, but I still like this guy because my guy has a much better profile. And, you know, is kind of like my guys might be a younger player who, like, even if he doesn't take the job in training camp, is probably a better bet over the course of the year to produce or whatever it might be. Where it's like, it's not like the coaches sit down with the beat reporters and tell them their plans.
Right. They don't go in the meetings. They don't get on the whiteboard. You know, this isn't, did you see Rich Paul is LeBron's agent, right? And obviously LeBron James in the basketball world is got everybody waiting on pins and needles. Shocker. LeBron is not announcing his decision quickly. He's going to soak up.
He's never done anything like this before.
Yeah, exactly. I can't wait to see the method in which he announces where he's going this time. It won't be the decision. I'll tell you that much, because that one did not go very well but anyway, Rich Paul, who hilariously is an agent, but also has a podcast on the Ringer network, is very funny. He literally did a podcast where he pulled out a freaking whiteboard and went through every team and talked about like what LeBron might like, why he might want to go there, or like what is good about, like, he's literally walking, and it was the most I couldn't believe it was real, right? The time loop thing. I'm like, what's happening? LeBron's agent is on a podcast with a whiteboard writing down about like, this place has good golf, you know, this place has whatever. And I was just like, what in the hell is happening? But anyway, you did get a little peek behind the curtain of like, this is LeBron's actual agent letting people, like, walking people through what he's thinking about. That is not what happens with these beats. Stand on the sidelines. They, they get a special little area, but they're not even amongst the team during practice. They stand just like fans do, and they watch practice. They don't even get to. There's sometimes they don't even get to be there, right? They'll shut it off from the media at times, and so they get to chart stuff, right? Sometimes they don't get to take video, sometimes they do. And they get to go ask questions after practice to the coaches and stuff like that. They don't get in meeting rooms. And the coaches are, of course, going to sometimes be very honest and sometimes be very political. And sometimes they're going to hype players because sort of it's politics of like, we want this young player to feel like we think we're excited about him, and some coaches are dicks, right? And so like, there's
also various embargoes on what they can share.
Yeah.
We talked about this before, but Jordan Rodriguez, they're not allowed to share the depth charts in some cases. And so like Jordan Rodriguez tweeted out a photo back in the day when it was Kyren Williams had solidified the RB2 job. And it was Akers, Kyren, and whoever their third running back was in order. And she goes, sometimes the order in which the running backs go through drills means something or doesn't mean anything. Sometimes it does. And I was like, she just told us the depth chart. Like, exactly. She very clearly told us the depth chart. So, stuff like that. There's like, you kind of like who your beat is matters. There's certain beat reporters over the years. I'm like, this is just like not. That feels like I'm just kind of getting a press release from the team without too much like pushback or scrutiny. You have the whole Joe Mixon stuff last year where it's just like, you would have been much better off just kind of like defaulting to, this guy has not been able to return to the field and won't tell us what's wrong with his foot. And that's like that. I don't need any more information like that. I'm just going to go off. Haven't seen him. Haven't heard anything about why his foot's not in good health. And yeah.
And the team
So
was actively sort of skating around any question about him too, right? It was like, so like you said, they're not.
they were.
And
I
I
think
don't.
the team was basically obfuscating. Like they were
Yeah.
kind of using the press to like almost like they didn't want to deal with what was actually happening, which is that they weren't going to have Joe Mixon for the year and hadn't planned correctly for that.
Right. Right.
So they kind of just didn't want to talk about it, and we're kind of like, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Don't worry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And so that's like you're like sort of getting information and sort of not getting information.
You're getting misinformation essentially.
Yeah.
And
right.
it was the team's fault, but it comes through the press.
Exactly. And I remember having those conversations last year.
Like,
this
Joe
is
Mixon's fault, I guess, ultimately. But,
yeah, right. At least he didn't.
I still don't know what happened. I mean, maybe
it
wasn't.
Didn't
I don't know.
Blow up his face with fireworks like Najee last year.
Yeah.
But it's also it's a one-off example, right? But it's not something like that. It's very unlikely to happen again. But I remember having those conversations constantly where people are just like, what's the price that you would actually draft Mixon? What's, how much and at first, I'm sort of just still figuring it out myself and being like, I think he would have to go pretty late and, blah, blah, blah. And then just after a little bit more of this, like you said, this misinformation, lack of information, literally Joe Mixon went straight Will Fuller. like I was waiting for him to show up in the hospital taking a picture of his foot that's in a cast or whatever. But it was like eventually I'm just like, just don't do it, dude. It is not worth this is not worth it. So what? Like some people got Joe Mixon at a nice discount. Like the odds that any individual player, especially one like Joe Mixon, are gonna pop up and like win everybody all, and have a 70% advance rate are so low that it's not that big of a deal. Like, but that's the like, how do we weigh this? Because there are going to be other times where it's like, yeah, this feels really weird, but I still think it's worth it to invest in this guy, right? And it's like, I think that those are pretty few and far between, but we have to be able to try to decipher those things. And I think it's ultimately just saying like every situation is different. We have to wade into that, but that's hard because there's 32 teams and we got to wade into all of these different situations and soak up the information and try to act as best we can.
Yeah, I think with Mixon and kind of Ayuk this year, there's sort of to me, you're going like, okay, because some of the like, okay, so Keenan Allen, right? Keenan Allen might not sign this year. He might not play. I haven't really heard a lot about Keenan. We know that he signed last year in early August, and there are a number of teams where, it would make sense for them to sign a wide receiver. Deebo Samuel is another guy, but I think a lot higher likelihood of playing.
Yeah.
But certainly, he hasn't signed yet. Same with Diggs. But Keenan is the one where it's like, if Keenan just didn't play football this year, I don't think anyone would really be surprised. But also he is like pretty live to play. If Keenan Allen plays, given that Keenan Allen plays, I don't really have any concerns about like his ability to contribute.
Agreed.
So that makes Keenan Allen is not someone I'm like drafting a lot of right now, but I am starting to kind of mix Keenan Allen in as there's been enough kind of buzz around him playing. He hasn't come out saying like, I'm not going to play this year. It seems like he kind of maybe enjoys not doing training camp. One of these years, it'll bite us. One of these years, like, oh no, I like retired guys. Did you not know that? But
he will, but not a Will Fuller, but he'll pop up. He'll be in Thailand. He'll have.
He's like, I'm not playing football.
He wasn't in the time loop, and he shows up on his yacht in Thailand one of these years. But yeah, I agree with.
So, but with like Mixon last year and Ayuk, it got to the point where it's like, even if these guys were to show up, I'm now like, what am I getting?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why with Ayuk, I was out, I think 16 videos ago now. It's like, it's okay. Like he gets released from the 49ers. Does that mean he's a Commander? Like increasingly less likely that happened, so
that
it's
sure doesn't seem, that ship seems to have sailed.
I think it fully sailed. Yeah. But it's that with those types of questions, I'm trying to think like, okay, you have this big unknown. What happens if the unknown resolves? Are you good, or do you need
Yeah.
another unknown? Is
Right.
this a
Right.
parlay or is this not a
Right.
parlay? Keenan's not a parlay. It's very clean.
Yep.
I mean, it's obviously dependent, like how much I would want him is dependent on where he goes and what that role looks like, etc. But it's pretty clean. If Keenan Allen plays, Keenan Allen will actually play. He'll have a role. So, and again, I'm not taking a ton of Keenan, but I do have a little bit of him in the final rounds of drafts right now as like, it's a good chance of being a zero, but when it's not a zero, it's not a zero,
Yeah.
and that's and there's some zeros that are like when it's not a zero, like, this guy might be active on game days, but like he's also a zero.
Yeah.
Even when
you don't get points for him being the gunner on the punt team.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, so that's how I try to think through those questions. And then like I was like not super worried about Mixon early, and then I got worried, but then he fell and I was taking some of them then, and then I got more worried and he didn't actually fall much more. So I'm like, well, I think I'm out. And then I got more worried and then he fell a lot, but at that point I was pretty much out. So, I did have some Mixon last year, but it kind of hit this threshold where it's like, yeah, he is looking unlikely to really even impact the season, even if he does play. And I'm really concerned he doesn't play. So, yeah. But anyway, to kind of bring it back to the beat reporter stuff, I think who your beat reporter is matters, and kind of getting a sense of, you can talk to people like any of the Roto World guys, like they know these beats. Like if you're, if you were to,
you would know working. You got when it's your job to spend hours on end reading what these guys are saying, and then you also learn about their track record, and you learn about their sort of vibe. I guess I would say
their vibe, kind of what they're, what they're doing,
what they like to report, how they like to report it.
Yeah,
you got because you ultimately have to be able to read
how
obviously
speculative
what they
tend to be. What they
exactly
tend to get wrapped up in certain things.
It's not just our job to read and soak in specifically what they're saying. We also have to read between the lines. And some of the guys we don't have to read between the lines at all, but the majority you do. Like you kind of
do.
Jordan Rodriguez is one of the best out there, but like she will tell you have.
She's more doing national stuff now though, so I don't know.
Exactly. She's not even probably not even relevant. Now we're getting I don't want to talk about this guy because we've had to for whatever fucking reason. I know the reason. It's your fault.
What?
I've had to talk about Charlie Kohler. I've had to talk.
Oh
yeah,
that is
Charlie
my fault.
Kohler.
That's honestly sacrilegious' fault, but my fault as well.
Fuckers have made me talk about Charlie Kohler and David and Njoku more, and the Rondé Gadsden more than I've ever wanted to. But it's a good example of this. I also had no idea who Dave Popper was until he apparently Daniel Popper. He I didn't even remember his first name.
You really didn't know.
He apparently this guy, we need to go check his positions on Kalshi or something for Charlie Kohler's season-long receiving yards or something. Like this guy is the biggest fan. Are they related or something?
Yeah, he's in the Kohler vortex.
Breakout player.
He's on the Kohler Express.
Charlie Kohler, like Jesus Christ, Charlie Kohler's dad probably wouldn't pick him to be the breakout player of the year. But anyway, yeah, I think it's fine. I had no pushback actually on Charlie Kohler and stuff. But within 24 hours, Popper puts out this Charlie Kohler puff piece and calls him his favorite breakout player. And, there's untapped receiving upside and they paid him all this money. Get it, right? Totally get it. It literally within the same 24 hours on the Chargers official website, the editorial director of the Los Angeles Chargers calls a Rondé Gadsden the offensive breakout player to watch or whatever for this year. And it's like essentially like same guys, people are doing the same things, taking in the same information, the same practices and all that kind of stuff. And they have two different reads on the exact same thing, right? I'm not saying one's wrong or one's right or whatever, but it's one of those types of things where you got to like sort of try to read between the lines too. Yeah. So ultimately it's not the end of the story when one beat writer proclaims this guy the winner.
Yeah. I think that there's two key points there. One is with Daniel Popper, a lot these beat reporters, like Daniel Popper writes for The Athletic, and he covers the Chargers. He doesn't cover fantasy football. He doesn't
Yeah,
You know, he's saying there's untapped receiving potential. Kolar can be kind of a more complete tight end and play a lot more than he did in Baltimore and was paid to do so. You know, and basically is an important player for the Chargers this season. But in a lot of ways, I think, you know, he'll feel very vindicated if Charlie Kolar plays half the snaps and, you know, catches a few touchdowns and like has a really sick run block that puts Samarian Hampton in the end zone, you know, for them to win the divisional and get to the conference championship game or something. Like that would be, I think he'd be like, yeah, like that's what I was talking about. Like he'll
get a game ball or something. You know, Charlie
gets a
Kolar
game ball. Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
Week
100%.
7, Charlie Kolar catches
plays
a touchdown.
Clearly ahead of Njoku in line, and
2 great blocks that Mike McDaniel's fucking upset. Right, McDaniel and Harbaugh are like so jacked up about it or whatever. Yeah, I can totally see that.
That is, I think, primarily like what Kolar's highlight. Now, I think there is some fantasy implications to that. One, I do think David Njoku is like a pretty horrendous pick because I don't think he's a starting tight end, and I don't think he's the pass catching weapon at tight end. Right. So, like, I mean, it doesn't. It's kind of like it's name brand sort of value, except the you know, it's like it's from a few years ago.
Yeah,
you know,
but it's
the
like
name brand value.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of even what a good like analogy would be. Like name brand value. I don't take this guy either. I don't think that you should. But like name brand value on Tyreek Hill is like, okay, look, I'm not sure he's ever going to play football again, given what he did to his knee and his age and his vibe. Speaking of fucking vibe, this guy's more interested in being a DJ and a bad human than a football player. But like, if someone wanted to say like, I mean, it's Tyreek Hill, dude, I can at least be like, yeah, okay, it's Tyreek Hill, right? I don't agree, but I can get where someone is coming from. David Njoku was at his peak above average NFL tight end. Is that fair? Above average.
And he got some scam stuff that one year too with
Flacco,
a bunch of screens. Yeah. And he had a little fantasy run. He was almost a bust. Remember, because Austin Hooper started over him that one year, and then they kind of like had to bring him. He had like a second contract run, but with the original team that drafted him, which is very kind of strange.
Isaiah Likely, where we always been like everybody from the moment David Njoku stepped into the league, you were like, okay, this guy's talented. You know, this guy's a mutant of a human being. You know, big, fast, strong, athletic, whatever, but he just was never really getting on the field enough, and you could explain it away. But then he finally did, like you said, did have a season or two where it was pretty nice. But it was sort of a weird career. So anyway, all I was trying to say was like you said, it's name brand because David Njoku has been playing a long time, but it's not even like what are you even getting? Like even with the name, what really is the substance behind the name? Like the dollar store version of
he was just beat out by a freaking 3rd round pick with who's duck footed guy.
Right. Exactly.
What are we doing?
Who came from the MAC? Dude was playing on Tuesday nights in college football. It's like not even real football in the MAC. Like, come on,
and
what are we talking about?
I mean, in all seriousness, like Harold Fannin, although I think he is quite good, and there's not a ton of shame in losing the job to him at this point, but he was a rookie, so it's still not great. And then you're also looking at a Browns team that doesn't have much depth at tight end now, and Njoku sat out there for a long time, unsigned, and then was signed by the Chargers for very little money. He's got some guarantees incentives. Or not guarantees, incentives in his contract, but I think with incentives he would make what Charlie Kolar is making this year.
Right.
Like if he hits all of his incentives,
it's like 3 guaranteed, right? I think it's 3
I think he can get up to like $7 or $8 million this year.
Right, but guarantees
it's like a couple mil.
3.
I think no guarantees. I think is 850,000. He's less.
Is it only
guaranteed.
that?
Yeah. He.
850.
Yeah,
and then sorry,
I don't think he'll get cut because like he's probably you're gonna have 3 tight ends, typically like, and why would you? But I mean he is being paid like someone who doesn't matter.
His base cap hit is 2.95. So that's where I'm getting that from. The incentives, Spotrac has him. not super achievable, I'm sure.
I would be surprised if they're very achievable. And the Browns currently backup tight end Joe Royer, Jack Stoll, Blake Whiteheart. So, I mean, maybe Njoku didn't want to go back there, but
that's probably part of it.
I bet he would have gone back there if they said, we'll give you $6 million and you don't have to do guaranteed. You don't have to do incentives.
100%. Yes, he would. But anyway, I just think that whole situation is an interesting one where you're going to get a lot of conflicting reports. And maybe
you are going to get conflicting reports. But I think on the flip side of that, you do see a lot of reporting around teams, also from a team level, that is functionally like you or me writing it. That it's like Kerrane Gadsden is an up-and-coming receiving weapon on this team. We're excited to have found him. We got him late. What a steal for us. We're so smart. He was productive. He's going to be more productive in the future. It's not based around anything other than this guy was pretty good last year. Like, you can read stuff, and I would recommend like going to these articles that because people are going to, and I think it's generally a good thing, but you're getting like more like, hey, look at this report, look at this report, look at this report. Zane's done a good job of kind of like he's been digging through podcasts, which is like,
God bless him. He's coming on with us sometime soon, by the way.
Yeah, nice.
He's doing great work, so we want.
So that's great. Like, I'm a fan of that. I think that's helpful, but at the same time, and Zane's like linked to the transcripts of these podcasts that he's citing, which is really helpful as well, because I think it's helpful to go to the source and like, what is the context of how this quote came about? What was the person trying to communicate? You know. Like, even like a few years ago when people were making fun of Dan Campbell for saying he wanted a big ass lion on a chain, like he was on Pardon My Take, and they're doing bits, and Dan Campbell like did a bit like, yeah, what if, because they're like, you got to have like a sheep when they walk in, and it's like, this is like, we eat the sheep, and he's like, yeah, or like, what if we have a big ass lion on a chain? That'll really get the players going. I'm like, this guy can roll with stuff. He's funny. He he understands like, the situation that he's in. He's like, I'm like, this seems like an awesome dude. Like, but people were like, what a fucking caveman idiot. He wants to have a lion on a chain, So it's like, if you just take the literal words and interpret them however you want, you're going to come up with bad opinions on what things mean. Like, it's much more helpful to be like, oh yeah, like he was literally doing like basically an improv bit with guys, and so you see these certain articles that are fine to exist, like they're fine, but it doesn't give us any more information than we have about certain players, where it's like, yeah, this guy was really productive last year, and that's exciting, and because he was productive last year, I would expect that he is productive again. That doesn't move the needle for me at all. Like, that is, and I think there's a lot of stuff that we're going to get like that, which is more, it's just not for us. It's for other people, right? It's for people who are more kind of casually into this, or even not into fantasy at all, but kind of Chargers fans or whatever fan of the team. And I think one thing to be careful of with that type of reporting, or even, I don't even know if I'd use the word reporting, but those types of articles and stuff, I think you want to be especially careful of with certain teams, like the Cardinals are kind of a tougher team to find beat reporting on. The Falcons, for whatever reason, are harder to find. You think they'd be super well covered. They're not really.
It's Atlanta, and they're like a really popular franchise.
It's like team level blogs and stuff. Like Falcoholics tends to be pretty good, but like but I wouldn't, if I was looking for the Patriots coverage, I wouldn't go to, the similar SB Nation or whatever it is. Right. Like, I wouldn't use that because they have a ton of reporters that cover the Patriots. It's almost like too many reporters on the Patriots. The Patriots, like, we spread this out.
We're finishing up the World Cup this weekend. The Patriots need to loan out their beat reporters to some of these other teams and charge these transfer fees.
They honestly could. They could start like a network. It's like the Patriots and Cardinals.
The Cardinals would never pay for it. That's why the
Cardinals would never pay for it.
The Cardinals are way too cheap.
So there's kind of like, there's certain things where you're going to get kind of inundated with reports on teams and you actually want to be ignoring them. And then there's certain teams where it'd be helpful if you could, well, maybe with Zane, maybe we don't have to, but like where you actually, it might be worth seeking out additional sources to try to dig up some kind of information. One other thing I would say, I know I'm kind of rambling here, but it's, I'm just reminding myself of other stuff as I go. But like to bring it back to Daniel Popper, we last we checked in with Daniel Popper was actually kind of the reverse situation. A couple years ago, we were doing bits on ship chasing and stuff about how Daniel Popper was letting us down by not telling us more about Kamani Vidal. Well, guess what, guys? He wasn't letting us down. He was just living in reality. And Kamani Vidal wasn't someone who needed to be written about. So he didn't have a role. We just were like, no, dude, like, but it was J.K.
We're taking
Dobbins
this guy in the 13th round of drafts. Why is he not writing about him? Like,
why won't you write about this?
Blaming
awesome
that guy
pick?
For like, well, that's the straight Windhorse meme. Like, now, why do you think that is that he's not writing about this guy?
But I think there is a big, like, truly Windhorse. Like, why do you think that is that they're not writing about this guy who's a smash in the 13th round? Like, he might not be a smash. And Vidal's like had, a secondary kind of little breakout, not breakout, but he was relevant, a relevancy in his second season that didn't exist in his first.
Yeah.
But yeah, that year it was J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, and Vidal. We all wanted to be Vidal. The actual answer was J.K. Dobbins, and Popper was telling us that by not telling us that, that he wasn't writing about Vidal. That matters.
He also proclaimed, this is I'm sorry to Mr. Popper. We're not trying to make this
Mr. Popper. No, I'm that was a Popper complimentary. He didn't, but we begged for stuff that didn't exist.
I was going to bring it back down to earth because I also believe that he said Gus Edwards would lead the team in rushing, right? So but it's kind of a great.
That was more accurate than Vidal.
Yeah, exactly. But it's kind of a great situation to bring up as an example because it sort of hits on a lot of the points that we're trying to make of like, okay, this guy's kind of guessed and speculated. He wrote something that wasn't for you that you or I could have wrote. Like maybe we were Gus. I'm not saying we obviously weren't, but I'm saying let's say we were Gus Edwards Bulls, right? That would have been an article like we would have wrote. Like I think Gus Edwards is going to lead the Chargers in rushing, right? That would be something that I would say if I were a Gus Edwards Bull. That's all he was, right? That was the equivalent to him doing the 4 millionth YouTube stream that here's my sleepers, right, in fantasy football. That's the equivalent of what he did, which is fine because there's Chargers fans who want that and deserve that. Probably. But so that was useless. And we should have said, no. Okay,
well, I would say with that, I think he's saying Gus Edwards is probably the RB1. But what we don't know, like, and then what I would kind of add to that is like, well, J.K. Dobbins is working back from injury. So we're not sure what we're going to get out of him. And then there's this other rookie, and we're not sure what we're going to get there. But the context with that rookie was he was a day 3 back, not a particularly strong prospect, although there were some interesting elements of his profile. It wasn't like this undercover, sort of workhorse. We have seen guys in the past, like James Robinson, emerge from a very, ambiguous backfield, or even a Myles Gaskin that was in his second year. But we've seen these guys be like, oh, okay, the opportunity's in front of them. Dameon Pierce as a rookie, Isaiah Pacheco as a rookie. We've gotten these breakouts from day 3 guys. It can happen. We want to be open to it, but you do start to hear generally some drumbeat stuff on those guys in training camp. And the fact that we weren't hearing that, I think, was the fact that he was saying Gus Edwards, again, was pretty telling about the Vidal bet. But then also, I think there's probably a little more uncertainty there with Dobbins that you'd want to layer in. Like what else was Popper supposed to say at that point with Dobbins? I don't recall exactly his timeline. Dobbins.
Well, Dobbins told us I remember this one. He told us in like May because he got hurt for the millionth time, as J.K. Dobbins tends to do. But told us that he was like, I'm 100%, or he might have said like 95 or something. He's like, I'm good to go. I'm going to be there for training camp. And then eventually they got to training camp and they posted what was supposed to be like a hype, like a health hype video of J.K. Dobbins. And he was like dragging his fucking leg around the field. You remember?
Well, he had that breakaway run in the season where his gait was all kind of screwy.
So it was a very bizarre situation. But well, all I was trying to say with the Gus Edwards things, it's such a good example of like that's the reading between the lines of the stuff. Is like if you just said, listen to this beat reporter, he's saying Gus Edwards. If you don't step back and apply your own context to this, it's like, okay, right, for all the reasons that you just said, that's a reasonable thing for him to say. For all the reasons that you just said.
Yeah.
But we don't just take his predictions and start applying them to our drafts. But then he also, when we were doing a prediction thing, we're like, Dobbins not healthy, older, Gus Edwards stinks, so let's do Kamani Vidal. It's like we're doing that, and it's not that was unreasonable, but once we got the information that you just, or basically the lack of information, which is in and of itself information, right? Where he's literally not talking about this guy ever. And you're like, Dobbins isn't healthy and it's only Gus Edwards and they're still not fucking talking about this guy. Like the alarm bells should be going off in that situation, right? And so it's like we kind of got everything from him in that summer where it was like he did the thing where that we, it was fine for him to do. It's his job, but we shouldn't probably just, follow him into battle behind Gus Edwards because of XYZ reasons. But also he gave us really powerful non-information at the same time.
Yeah. And I think like with the Charlie Kolar thing, like I'm basically betting that Charlie Kolar, runs more routes than people think and has like 400 something receiving yards and catches a few touchdowns. And that as part of like a 4 tight end build where I'm like tacking on a dart throw who like does some stuff before where like there's not like so many running backs late that we like. And then also maybe I already spent, maybe I kind of did like I did a hyper fragile build. So like a running back is kind of a waste a little bit unless I think someone has emerged as a clear smash. And it's like, well, screw it, like throw out the structure as a slow draft. I thought I didn't know this guy was going to exist back here when I started this draft. Now I'm just going to take him. But like structurally, I kind of gave myself extra dart throw options. And so here is a dart throw option on a team that I want to have pieces of, just random pieces of, right? Like the Chargers are pretty high on that list. So that's where like the Kolar stuff, like even as someone who drafts Charlie Kolar I don't view him as like the potential this huge breakout bet. Like he's just like a piece of the Chargers offense that people aren't really drafting. And so, it could be kind of a nice little differentiating week 15, scores a touchdown, is my tight end, whatever.
Yeah.
But also couldn't be more excited. The loop for me is like, I got to do this whole Charlie Kolar thing again. Like, like part of training camp is that I don't have to draft Charlie Kolar anymore because I think we'll get other people who are better picks than Charlie. He's a little placeholder rate. It's like, I don't want a 0. You drafted a 0, I'm pretty sure. I'm not going to draft a 0. I'm going to draft a guy. He's not a smash. But I built my team in such a way that I am like looking for some just kind of more pure dart throws. Hey, hit my lineup a couple times, hit my lineup once in the right week kind of thing. Who's going to carry the team? Well, the whole bet is that basically I've got 4 running backs and they all stay healthy and I'm good there, and so now I've got some high-end wide receivers, but not that many of them. And, I got 3 or 4 good receivers and then gets a like kind of high, like a little bit high probability dart throwy types like an Omar Cooper. And then I get into pure dart throw guys and only need so many of those. So let me tack on a, 3rd or 4th tight end. So that's where that comes in. But it's like, as that bet, I think Popper's done a good job of saying like, hey, this dude's like probably gonna run, maybe not run the most routes, but play the most snaps at tight end and potentially run the most routes. I would say Gadsden will, and Gadsden goes ahead, and I've taken some Gadsden. So I think Gadsden's a better bet for routes and targets, obviously. But you get that information has some utility. It doesn't lead you to be like, yeah, I mean, Kolar's absolutely gonna crush. He's like
imagine drafting Gadsden, the starting tight end for the Chargers, and is available in the last round. You fucking donkeys.
You keep it in perspective, and then you also like there will come a time where I think that type of play just doesn't like move the needle compared to the other available options, as those options get kind of more narrowed down and we start to learn who the number 2 running back is in a number of spots. And I think that is probably, of all the stuff that we can learn, hey, this guy's actually the number 2 running back, and I think he's going to play. Like that's the best stuff we can get. That's what we got with Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. No one would have thought 7th round pick, like didn't play college football his final season, not his fault. NCAA literally was like, someone else wore your jersey, so you can't play football anymore.
Which is, thankfully, that's over. That won't happen. The poor Bill lost out on a significant amount of money from being the current era of college football. Like, he would have got paid, obviously, handsomely to go when he went to Arizona, and then lost. I'm certain of a bunch of draft capital, like a ton of draft capital. Like
100%.
That dude lost millions of dollars.
Screwed over. Yeah. So anyway, but so that, he comes in, it makes sense because the NFL didn't get to see him. No one got to see him play in his final season, but it's like, oh, he's actually quite a bit better than the normal 7th round pick. And they're good, then they trade Brian Robinson, but there was a big drumbeat before that. Didn't come out of nowhere. Like, that Correct. Was very much, at that point becoming like expected. Like, oh, beat reporters at camp before that trade, weeks before the trade, were going, I think Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt will be the starting running back by the end of the season. And we were hearing that from multiple people. It wasn't like we got it from one guy, because, that's helpful too, right? Like, is there one person who's just kind of super excited about this player?
Right.
It's kind of like their brand play, they always write about this guy. Or is it like we're hearing from a variety of reporters, and the Commanders are a pretty well covered team. And we were hearing, they were literally going around at camp. At one point, there's a video where they went around at camp and said breakout players, and like 3 or 4 different people said Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, right? This is all before the Brian Robinson trade. So stuff like that, I mean, that's obviously like kind of the best thing you can hope for. But even something like Kyle Monangai last year, we're getting Roschon Johnson. Greg Branos did a great job with this. It's like, he had like a running tally of like days since Roschon Johnson's name has been mentioned. And I think it got up to like 300 days, it was it was a long time.
Roschon felt like he was in a fucking loop. There's a new press conference every day, and he hasn't talked about me, and everybody thinks I'm the backup running back.
Right. So it's like, oh no, like Kyle Monangai is like very clearly the backup running back now.
Simultaneously, it wasn't just a lack of in this situation. It wasn't just a lack of Roschon commentary. It was they were also speaking highly of Monangai.
That's right. Yeah. So I think running back depth charts is probably the biggest signal that we're going to get, because it's a position where it's I think a little bit more clear of who's like. If you're playing with the ones, like, you are the running back. It's not like you're rotating in with the ones as a receiver. But what does that mean? Are you the receiver 4? Are you the receiver 5? Like, all these guys, like in Baltimore, unless someone really starts to stand out, my expectation is that we will see, obviously Flowers will play like exclusively with the ones, but then Bateman will probably rotate out so that they can get Tez Walker and Jacoby Lane and Elijah Surratt all kind of in. But 100%. What does that mean? Does that mean Surratt played with the ones today? Does that mean he's the wide receiver 2? Probably not. Might not even mean he's the wide receiver 3. He could be the wide receiver 4. It's
you could get the wide receiver 5, but he's rotating in with the, like, I suspect over the course of the summer, I could write the script of like this. I could write a Tez Walker is mixing in with the ones, or like in OTAs, it was, here's the starting 3 wide receivers in 11 personnel, and it's like Tez is a starter. And then you'll get to the next day of camp, and they'll be like, well, Jacoby Lane is mixing. Jacoby Lane caught a goal line touchdown and from Lamar Jackson, right? And Elijah Surratt was playing this really fun slot role with, and it's like they all are going to get a chance like that. It's practice, it's training camp. That's also important for us to remember. They're figuring these things out.
They're figuring it out. I'm fully expecting to get a Jacoby Lane is the one playing with the ones thing when I draft Surratt or whatever
Yep.
or Tez Walker's the one playing with the one, whatever it is. I mean, because again, I don't think, because the other thing about this stuff is that some reports get more traction. And so it's important to try, as much as you can to just like kind of keep up to date with all the, like not every report requires a ton of your attention, but it's still good to like try to consume a good amount of it, because you might see something like Jacoby Lane's playing with the ones. Okay. But like, is also Elijah Surratt playing with the ones? Is also Devontae Walker playing with the ones? Because that's helpful information. If Jacoby Lane is repeatedly playing with the ones like every day, and those guys aren't really, like, then I care. But those like two very different things.
Because a lot of guys, I don't mean to go like full hand in the dirt, like you don't know ball, bro. But like, I assume most people have like participated in a practice of a sport in their life, or a training, even if it's high school, right? You went to like, you didn't just show up on day one of training camp at your high school football, over the summer, and like whoever was the one, right, who was the starter on day one at every single position was perfect. Like over the course of training camp, you figure these things out. Over the course of the season, things change, and these, right? So even who is the starter in week one isn't necessarily going to be the starter. Like that's part of the Ravens thing specifically, is like, I'm pretty confident Rashad Bateman like takes the first snap or whatever in week one, almost no matter how this summer goes. I mean, it's not 100%, but I would expect it to be the case. That would be my expectation.
In breakout seasons for Jacoby Lane, I would expect that Rashad Bateman plays the first snap on the outside.
Yep.
In week one.
But
like in breakout seasons.
Exactly. So, but like in week 10, 12, 16, 17, what does that look like? It can be different. So, that's another hard thing to think about, is like, remember, this is football in July. They're working on things. Sometimes guys are like sort of getting quasi tryouts, right? And I don't mean like tryout to make the team. I mean, like, let's see. The Chiefs have just given us the straight up middle finger a ton of times with this kind of stuff, where they're like, this guy's, again, the mixing in with the ones, right? Remember Carson Steele, Deneric Prince was running with the ones every day for like weeks on the Chiefs. I believe Pacheco was hurt, right? And so they're trying out all these guys, and it's like, and so I fell for this. I don't even know that it's inherently wrong, but you also have to.
I don't think it is. I think it's inherently right to know who's practicing with the ones.
Right. And Deneric Prince was. And I'm like, the Chiefs, like, this guy might play a lot for the Chiefs, and he's in the last round of draft. This feels great. Not only did he not play, he got cut. He didn't even make the team, right? And this was a guy who all summer was like, you got constant. He's mixing in with the ones.
I completely forgot about Deneric Prince.
He's he was getting not Bill level hype by any stretch of the imagination, but they were like, he's explosive. And then you start to go back and like, sort of retrofit, like, you're like, let me go find these fun things about Deneric Prince's profile and convince myself that like he's actually better than is. And that's where it can go wrong, right? Is like, you're like, you just get enamored with he's mixing in with the ones on the Chiefs, and you're like obsessed with it. But to your point, I don't think it's wrong, because these are the kind of situations that we need to pounce on. But you also have to understand that like, you don't just get all the answers during a football.
You don't just get all the answers. Yeah. It's not like you like truly do not. And there's lots of, I honestly think if you like made us sit down and like empty our brains out, we would come up with so many Deneric Princes that we don't even really want to think about, because it's like frustrating how much bullshit there actually is, because there is signal in here. So like, I think to almost like protect yourself, to like make yourself do the work, you kind of like flush out all like how much bullshit and noise there was the previous years, and then you got to chase the new stuff. But then also like we're gonna be chasing our tails on a number of these things, but like the only way to find out that like actually Eli Mitchell isn't the RB2 in San Francisco and it's Jordan Mason, and that really matters that year. Like the only way is just to like have the energy to, absorb all the other bullshit, and then
you got to take the body blows, man, and even the fucking knockout blows, and you got to stay in the ring. You just have to. Like the Jordan Mason one is a great example, and that one's really frustrating because it was one of it wasn't quite Kyren, but it was pretty fucking close to the Kyren Williams pick. But of course, Jordan Mason got hurt himself. He played like 7 games, and he was like one of the
awesome pick. Yeah,
he was like the RB5 or something like that in fantasy. When he got hurt,
he wasn't. It was truly not known that he would be the number 2. Like I think not known to the 49ers. I think they you're saying, like they figured out in camp that Mason, a second-year UDFA, was the better bet than Eli Mitchell, who I think was entering year 3. But they'd already traded for CMC, because this is 2023 we're talking about, right? And then then CMC got hurt. So yeah, it was
but you have to, like, it's just like any other like best ball tactic, right? Or whatever you're building. So like you just talked about, I'm building these hyper fragile teams. I believe in it for XYZ reasons, which you've already elaborated on. I agree, whatever. But you're like, not every single one of them is going to work. Sometimes when you only take 4 running backs, 2 of them are going to get hurt, and that's
2024, by the way, not 2023.
Yeah. Because then he had the one season, and then he went straight. Then he went straight to Minnesota.
And also, it was his 3rd season, not his 2nd. But whatever, it was. We learned.
We got news. We got that news, and that was. It's really frustrating because like I had a good season that year, but I like 50% Jordan Mason, because once we got that, this is something that I believe in really strongly. And like I said, so I'm speaking from experience of like, I've had to suffer through generic Prince. I've had to suffer through, like, I had non-zero Carson Steele. Like you have to, it sucks. You're going to have teams where you look back and you're like, this team rocks, but there's fucking Eli Mitchell at the end of it. You know what I mean? Or
totally.
This team rocks, but Denarius Prince is back there. But and that's not fun. Right. That's the you had this awesome hyper fragile team, but Jonathan Taylor and Cam Scatterbu got hurt or whatever, you know, and it's like, this team rocked, but God damn it, dude, you know. And then you like what the mistake is like, should I have taken another running back on that team? It's like, no, the ones that go on the scrap heap, you leave them on the scrap heap. It doesn't mean that they were wrong. You got to go attack the next thing, you know. And I think that's the biggest lesson I've had to frankly learn is like, you're not wrong for doing this, but it doesn't mean it's going to be right every time. And it's going to fucking suck when it's wrong, and it's going to kill some awesome teams, you know? And even sometimes like the Jordan Mason thing is like, I don't have any regrets about that. How could you? But it didn't work because he didn't play in the second half of the season. You know, he played 7 games. And so it's like, even if you show up to week 17, you're like, cool. Like, he definitely helped me get there. Like, you can explain it away, but it still sucks. Right. And so you got to be able to deal with the body blows to get to get the belt, or whatever the analogy I'm looking for.
Sure.
Like in order to find Kyren and to find Jordan Mason, and even to find Kyle Monungai and to find
whatever. Yeah, Monungai's like a hit. Like, that matters.
A legit, like, to find Ja'Cory Grosky-Merritt, to find these guys, sometimes you're going to have to deal with some dead ass Denarius Prince teams.
Yeah,
like,
I also think this kind of goes to the roster construction stuff I've talked about a lot this offseason. I think in part because we're drafting more than ever early. We're drafting, you know, like, I didn't used to max the big board, you know, I didn't used to max the training camp stuff on DraftKings at all. Like, I didn't max it last year, and I maxed it this year. Like, you're trying to, you know, we're just way more plugged in than we used to be earlier. And that means, like, we're kind of thinking about the way I'm drafting now, meaning May or June, is the way I'm drafting this summer. But like, that's not necessarily true. And maybe it shouldn't be true. Like, maybe it's bad if that's true, because when you are drafting in August and September, you have the potential to like get to those final rounds and have teams that you're like, this team isn't going to be good or really good unless I find running back production. And am I in a position where I think there's like a sufficient volume of bets that I can do that, where, oh, I got sniped. I got sniped in the 16th round. Is the team dead? Or are there like a variety of bets that are all pretty good bets and like high enough probability bets where they're not just like total stabs in the dark, you know? where it's not just a Jarquez Hunter who like doesn't see the field.
Yep.
You know, it's like, no. Like I know that there are these like there's a glut of RB2s, NFL RB2s on depth charts sitting back there in round 16, 17, 18 that I can, and like the team that I got to the finals in 2023 with Kyren, 17th round Sean Tucker, 18th round Kyren. I don't like, to me that's like kind of, I mean, I wish I had known to take Kyren in the 17th because it would really suck if I hadn't, you know, but if I hadn't gotten him in the 18th, but like it was, you're getting back there. Like, I think I can find a running back who moves the needle for me in the final rounds in a way that I didn't feel that I could do that at a high enough clip to where I'm building my teams built around the idea that I will achieve this.
Yeah.
Like you get to post training or kind of middle of training camp. I think by the middle of training camp, that'll just be like a lot more viable. You're like, yeah, I'm going to find some running back production in the final rounds, in rounds 15 plus. That's actually what rounds 15 plus is like kind of for right now. Mm-hmm. It's like finding these guys who weren't drafted early, ideally. And, you know, I show up in pods against these early drafted teams that got crazy prices on guys that have moved up like 3 or 4 rounds now. You know, I don't think Omar Cooper is apparently going to like start for the Jets week 1 as whatever, you know, there's some reporter, which he was a first round pick, you would expect. But like, why is he going at pick 145 or whatever? Like, I don't think that's going to hold, you know. But you know, even if that one does, there's plenty of stuff that will shuffle a lot, and you'll be like, oh man, like this already kind of happened with Zay Flowers. Like, remember we were getting Zay Flowers in the 4th, Jalen Waddle starting to move up.
Trying to figure out who did this. I'm getting so fucking annoyed because it was like we literally like 2 weeks ago we talked on this show. I'm like, I love, you know, we agreed on Zay for a long time, but I'm like, I get to move him around. I get him with, you know, I get him with everybody. I can take running backs early. I cannot, you know, whatever. And it's like now it's every draft I get into, some fucker takes him on the at the 2-3 turn with Gibbs.
and the other thing, like some of these guys, people are going to get hurt, and it won't always be injuries that like unlock some running back that moves up a ton. It'll just be like annoying stuff where like a guy is like, yeah, his outlook's a little murkier now, and he's probably gonna miss a few games, but he'll come back. But you know, that player who was a 4th round pick is just not in the 4th round anymore, and so other, you know, players that we like move up by default, and then there's a bit of buzz on them. You know, I think the round 5 Jalen Waddle thing is over now. You're going to go against, you're going to make pods, right? Week 15, you advanced, you're in a pod, you look at the other teams, and you're looking at like a team that's got 4th round Zay, 5th round Waddle. Like, well, shit, that's a good team, probably. You know, if they advanced, you know, and so, you know, you assume those plays actually worked as well as being CLV. One of the ways that you could have a big edge on those teams is that you've got running backs they didn't even know about. And so I do, it's not the only way, but it is a nice little perk of August and September is that you can get those running. So anyway, I think it's just like finding out the running back depth charts really is such a key part, and it is boring, I think, in some ways. Like, you know, it doesn't matter how they look.
I mean, yeah, exactly.
Manungai wasn't like popping off.
No.
You know,
you couldn't make a fucking Kyle Manungai Twitter highlight clip if you wanted to. Like, come on, what are you gonna do? This guy running slowly in a straight line? Like, what even is a Kyle Manungai highlight? You know what I mean? But like,
one of the guys we've gotten so far is George Halani, who I take now, and
I took him this morning on stream.
Yeah, you couldn't. I'm not sure I know what George Halani looks like.
If he walked in my house right now, I wouldn't know that it was George Halani. No idea. Absolutely no idea. He went to Boise State. All I can think of, what was the guy's name that proposed to? He was on the team that went undefeated or whatever. Ian Johnson. Was that his name? The running back is like, somehow I might know what Ian Johnson looks like more than George Holani, and I'm just being racist because they're light-skinned black guys who were running backs at Boise State. Like, I have absolutely no idea, and I've never seen a George Holani play where I was like, oh yeah, that was awesome.
Right.
Like, absolutely not. But again, like you said, it's boring, but the boring shit is what can often move the needle even more than the exciting stuff.
The boring stuff, I think, is the best stuff, because the boring stuff is like, who's the number 2 running back on this team that we didn't have a number 2 running back penciled in for before, or that we weren't sure. And like, guess what? The Colts don't know who their number 2 running back is. They straight up don't know. They'll know, I assume, before week 1, and we will find out, at some point as well. So, like, now, do the Colts running back 2 matter? Often not. But if the Colts running back, if Jonathan Taylor were to suffer an injury and you have the Colts locked in number 2, like, guys, it's not close. Like, Giddens ran away with it, or Seth McGowan ran away with it. Like, he's the clear RB2 here. Then that, I do think is one of the hits, and this didn't end up being as clean a hit ultimately as it could have been, but like, Zach Moss was a pretty nice hit when he was the RB2 for the Colts, and Taylor did get hurt.
Yep.
I remember Rich Rebar being on Zach Moss that year, and I was like, Zach Moss, really? Isn't it like
the guy who
Goodson or whoever? I forget who the other guy was.
Tyler Goodson.
But but it was Moss. Moss was the correct answer.
Evan Hull was around.
Evan Hull. I'm sure I was drafting Hull because
I know
a
I
lot more fun.
Evan.
Yeah. That's way more fun and not correct. So I think I was on that.
What a fucking surprise that the boring Zach Moss, who couldn't get on the field over Devin Singletary, who apparently just does that to everyone, right? He just keeps guys off the field that's his job. He's like Dario Gumbawale, just being obnoxious to the guys we actually want to draft for his whole career. But it's like, yeah, this is one of those exact examples where I was like, no, dude, Evan Hull, that's fun. Like, this profile is pretty fun. He's athletic. He's a workhorse in college. He catches passes, all this stuff, right? And I'm like, Zach Moss, Tyler, like, those guys stink. This is the Kamani Vidal. This is the Jaden Blue. This is the whatever that we do. We do this. You know what I mean? And I think I've gotten better. I'm never going to be perfect, but I think I've gotten better. And the boring Zach Moss thing was like, not league winner, but shit, man. Once JT went down, if you had Zach Moss on a team in the last round, like, that's about as powerful as it doesn't have to be Kyren, to be like really, really powerful, because you're getting legit good fantasy production from a late round running.
Yeah, no, it's pretty great. And like, that goes to the thing I was saying before, like Keenan Allen, like, does Jonathan Taylor get hurt or even get banged up to the point where this player that I drafted matters at all? Often he does not. But what happens if he does? It sucks what happens if he does, and you have also a guy who doesn't matter. But if you get the confirmation that, no, it's Zach Moss, he's solidified the RB2 job, at least, it's no longer a parlay, really. It's like, I have the handcuff. And you are taking on some risk at that point, because Taylor is not going to get hurt in a lot of years. But you also are getting this added advantage of, no one knew who to draft before now. And I know at least who the real handcuff is. And so if that player matters, he can kind of put me over the top. Maybe you get 25 points out of Zach Moss in a playoff week. That could be huge, because you're not holding hands with anyone else in the pod potentially. You're the only guy. That's a big leverage point. You don't need a lot else to go right. It's hard to advance through these pods even with that, but it's still pretty good. And so, yeah, I mean, finding those RB2s, and I would say with those RB2s, I don't want to do a lot of like, yeah, but this guy stinks, and we know he stinks. Like, because it's a handcuff play. It's a handcuff play. It's not like, we're not betting on. Are you betting on a guy to take a job over the course of the season without an injury? Okay, then let's talk about his profile.
Yep.
Are you betting on a guy to be the handcuff? Then I think you need to be a lot more open-minded about the profile. Kyle Monangai rated like shit for me in my prospect mode.
I remember we talked about him on our 5-hour podcast.
I did finally start drafting him on DraftKings. It took a little more convincing, but 20th round, at the very end of the draft season when it was clear he's the RB2, I finally did get on board.
I mean,
And
watch him play. You can understand why no one would be excited to get on.
yeah, he's just
him. I liked him more than you
quintessential
did,
grinder, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's the most boring shit you've ever seen in your entire life.
Yeah. But even then, like I did draft him. I also should have been drafting him earlier and just been like, look, dude, this is functionally a handcuff play. You know, he actually was more. He ended up hitting more than that, but really, it's like
he's a
handcuff
1B.
play.
He turned into
Yeah,
a 1B.
it was a 1B. Yeah, and that's some of these handcuff plays are able to maybe not become the starter, but at least become 1Bs. And I think you do want to be listening to what the team's telling you on those and not doing so much, you know, profile work. Because again, you're really just it's like contingent value. And like to that point, team commitment to guys that they drafted that sucked ass and then they committed again. That's a signal too. So the beats might not be like reporting a ton about that, but you can at least find like, okay, preseason snaps, you know, or you know, potential who's playing with the ones, who's rotating in behind the starter. But Tank Bigsby sucked as a rookie. Sucked. Second year,
laughable
awesome
highlight tape, by the way. Like the drops and the like. He was like a meme because it was so bad. Because it wasn't just that he was bad; the mistakes were so loud that it was like catastrophic level mistakes. Like he got laughed off of fantasy football basically for a year.
100%. And it's like, this dude can't play. You know, I've seen him. I've seen that he can't play. Don't tell me this guy can play kind of stuff, which like based on the way he played, totally fair. But you do have the team saying, no, he can play. He's fine. Like we're disappointed. He probably isn't what we were hoping he'd be, but he can run the ball and he's our secondary runner.
Yep.
And then he got a lot of work in his second year.
And then even just last year, as you know, it's small sample alert, all that kind of stuff. Behind Saquon, had some of the best rushing metrics in the entire NFL last year.
Yeah,
it's really crazy. Like he's such a good example of. I don't want to like bet that every guy who's horrendous.
No, it's the team commitment.
Good.
That's what it has to be. Exactly. It has to be a team being like, no, we're still in. This guy can play. You know, he's our secondary running back. That's really what it is. I don't even need this guy can play, but he is clearly the secondary running back.
Yeah.
And
he's always the next man up in drills, right?
He's the next man up.
Yep.
He's the next man up. If the team's like, I don't have a lot of like, I am going to fade. Yeah, sure. He's the next man up, but he's not good. So even if he is the next man up, it doesn't matter because it's like, no. That's not how this works. Like Alexander Madison was the next man up. He also kind of sucks, but he was the next man up and it was awesome. You know, whenever he took over for Dalvin Cook, it worked great. Kyle Mackay is not a very good running back, shouldn't be like anyone's starter, like probably ever, but is a perfectly cromulent RB2 and is actually kind of getting more work than I ever thought. Maybe he does push DeAndre Swift, and I'm just wrong about that because you know now you're kind of paying a premium for him as one of these like locked in premium 1B type handcuffs. But we first knew to draft him just because the team was like, yeah, he's the RB2. Blake Corum, who is also one of those premium locked in handcuffs now, was quite bad as a rookie, and then they drafted a running back. And so, what are they saying? Are they moving on from Corum? Well, they then said throughout last summer,
great example,
Corum is our RB2. And it's not that you throw it out, because if you told me last summer that I had to spend a 12th round pick on Corum and he was going to have the season that he ultimately did have, I would have said, I'm fading that. This dude sucked last year. But if you tell me he's an 18th round pick and you're just getting pure contingent bet on Kyren and no one's really been drafting him because we were taking Jarquez Hunter and we weren't sure who to take, then that's pretty good. We actually got Corum like in the sidekick early on. We were getting Blake Corum and we were kind of like, I don't know, dude, really? Like this guy? And I'm like, yeah, we should have listen more to like the literal like here's the Rams depth chart has Blake Corum as the RB2, like
Right?
and not just what the team posted, which is another kind of noisy thing that some intern posted depth chart, but like literally in practice he is the RB2. That really matters, and I don't think we want to get caught up in small sample rookie stuff and just like kind of nitpicking profiles, or even not even nitpicking, just like analyzing the profile, because you're fundamentally betting that there's an injury in season. They're going to go to the guy that they trusted to be the number 2, and that you might be talking about a game, 2 games, 3 games. Like there's not enough time for Jarquez Hunter to even come steal the job. It's like, hey, Kyren went down in game. Kyren just tweaked his ankle. Who's going to benefit from that? Probably the guy who's been repping as the RB2 all year. Right? So that, I think the team level commitment of overriding disappointing small sample rookie stuff, that I think is a big one, and one I struggle with. Or just like really gross profiles, like the team installing a guy as the RB2. I mean, fundamentally, this was Kyren. Kyren was not the starting running back entering week 1 of that year. No, he was a 1B play. Now it was such a smash. We all got super excited because everyone wanted to bet against Cam Akers. Like it was clear. It was
generally why Kyren happened is it's generally not this clean. Normally, like you said, like normally you're like, okay,
weakest starting running backs that had been benched already
by this
previous year by this
they also
coach.
Didn't they get into didn't he dismiss him from practice, or like
it was like a personal thing, like they were like it was falling apart.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was so clean and easy, and that's why. And it's also, this is like part of how you can fall into the trap too, right? You can fall into the Evan Hull trap of this, because I was like, I kind of like this prospect profile, like you said. So digging too much into it. But for Kyren, it was like confirmation bias doesn't begin to describe it. It was like you could go search on Twitter of like me gush when Kyren was at Notre Dame, of me being like, I fucking love this dude as a prospect. Like, so it was like a triple whammy where I was just like, I love this dude as a prospect. He has the workhorse. I know he's small, but he has a workhorse profile. He catches passes. He's actually a really good short yardage runner. And Cam Akers sucks ass, and Sean McVay hates Cam Akers.
It was the perfect storm of everything that we look for, and then it actually happened. So it's just a beautiful thing. I mean, they literally trade Cam Akers like early in the season. He's off to the Vikings. Like they just cleared it. They're like, yep, he's what we wanted. Cam's gone. It was just I was so clean. But like, because there is stuff, I don't want to act like I'm only going to care now about like what the depth charts are, and I'm not going to care about profiles and stuff. Of course I will, but I do think that coming back to what is my bet, what is the bet that I'm making? A guy I wish I had more of in his rookie season was Bucky Irving, right? When I was like a little bit nervous about, he's undersized, and I drafted some, but I remember Gretsch was hammering Bucky that year, and feeling like, I should have been more on that, obviously. But you have a weak incumbent starter in Rachaad White, and you've got a guy in Bucky who's got a really interesting profile. Now he's undersized and he's unathletic, but he was very productive in college, and he can catch the ball. And so he wasn't so much like a hype train guy, but you're getting, you're saying this is a, I guess I've been a little bit torn on Katron Allen, because I'm a little bit worried about, does he have an active game day roster spot? Like, is he a healthy scratch?
They have a bunch of it
they've
feels
got a bunch
like they
of
only
guys.
have the 2 guys. McNichols is there. Jerome Ford is there. They have a bunch of guys.
And so I think, but you look at him and you go wide open here. If he's good, what are the odds that he's good? And then we go to the profile. Well, He's a little kind of Kyle Monangai-esque, and he's kind of more of like hard hat, lunch pail type of runner.
Yep.
But they kind of don't have that otherwise. You know, Rashad White takes forever to get through the hole. It's just like so frustrating to watch. I mean, like it's hard for me to watch. I can't imagine how the coaches feel.
He moves like he's a grinder, but he doesn't run with the physicality of a grinder.
No,
which is kind of not a good combination.
It's not a good combo. And then Bill's more of a kind of a boom bust explosive guy, which know.
If he's like dollar store Ken Walker or something. He's like trying to hit home runs and stuff.
100%. So you could see Kerrane like really emerging as the best rushing option there pretty easily. So for him,
goal line, you can really easily
goal line.
Even if he's like not taking Bill's job, you could easily see the goal line roll.
Also, Daniels just like creating bigger holes where it's like, yeah, he doesn't have like the most explosion, but dude has no problem running right up the gut, north-south, gets going. Daniels, draws the defender away. Kerrane's got the ball. He, maybe he's like a build-up runner in the NFL, and it's like, yeah, he doesn't. It's not like you see Bill run, and it's like, dude, his acceleration is sick, but maybe, Kerrane benefits from Daniels drawing that defensive attention, and he's able
to bring it back to the Gus Edwards. It reminds me of Gus Edwards. Is like, dude, Gus Edwards is averaging 5 yards a carry. 5 yards a carry every single season because he played with Lamar Jackson. It's not because Gus Edwards was great. Who gives a shit? You got this he was one of the most efficient backs in the league, and you're like, wait, Gus? And you watch him, and you're like, how the fuck is this guy averaging 5.5 yards per carry?
It's a perfect comp. It's perfect comp. Yeah, he could be Gus Edwards, who was UDFA, I believe, and I would have been a pretty great 18th round best ball pick. So Kerrane, I am drafting some Kerrane now. I could see myself drafting a ton of Kerrane if he were to generate the buzz in camp. I could also see myself drafting a ton of Kerrane if he doesn't generate much buzz, but it becomes clear that like McNichols is going to get cut.
Right.
That would be real good. I think that's actually my preferred way to play this.
Kerrane is still
reality to be in is that
the RB3, but they're like, but McNichols and Ford are not like those guys.
They're not a thing. It's these three guys. These are the three guys. I'm gonna draft a lot of Kerrane because I don't think his price will increase that much on that. No. That would be my.
It might go down.
Favorite.
He might not even get drafted all the time anymore. Yeah, and now it's like I got sort of what I wanted. Right. From the news perspective, I got sort of what I wanted. It's not ideal, but it's like the sort of thesis of the play has changed a little, but not really. It's like just like and
this the downside kind of drops a little. That's what it is. It's like
exactly.
Yeah, I'm not drafting a guy who's like because look, Vidal can play, but he didn't play as a rookie. This happens all the time. Jaden Blue might be pretty good, actually. I don't know. But he didn't. He was a healthy scratch basically all of last year. Yep. And I know there's like some more like buy-in stuff there, but it's just like guys who hit. I mean, Blake Corum didn't do shit as a rookie. He actually is pretty good, it turns out, and was drafted in the 3rd round, not the 7th.
People think Kyren's breakout was his rookie season, but I know he got hurt.
It wasn't
as a rookie, but people don't. A lot of people
they forget.
I shouldn't say that, but there are plenty of people I imagine that are like, yeah, Kyren rookie season. Like, nope, that was year 2, man.
Didn't happen.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think just the floor of it, the floor raising element of like getting, okay, McNichols is not going to, McNichols gets traded or something for, a 7th to some super running back needy team and needs a pass catcher type. I mean, like you could see the Raiders or something be like, yeah, we could use like a reliable pass catcher 3rd down guy.
I might honestly be surprised if Mike Washington ain't it. I might honestly be surprised if they didn't pick somebody up off the right. Either give a 7th for him or pick somebody
or
up
just
after
exactly. Yeah, signed off the practice squad. That would be another thing. They think they can have in the practice squad. Whatever. But that backfield could be thinned out in a nice way for us over the course of August, and then all of a sudden Kerrane becomes, a pretty clear bet. Nick Singleton, I probably want a little bit more hype on because I don't think it's quite as clean, but certainly that's one I'm really keeping my eye on. But yeah, I mean, I think, it does matter. Like, am I betting on this guy to emerge without an injury, or am I betting on him to have some contingent value? Because with contingent value, pure contingent value, and it's like the team, I'm now starting to feel confident that he is the clean RB2. I don't want to then overthink it with the profile stuff so much. But if it's more like, I need him to pass someone, then I do really want to still care about what I think about the player or what I'm hearing about the player. Like Jonah Coleman would be an example where it would be really nice to get some buzz on Coleman.
Yep.
I like the profile. He did fall to day 3, though, in a weak running back class. That's concerning.
Mm-hmm.
There's 2 guys who can play ahead of him. It's not super clean. If Dobbins were to go down, I could see Harvey being the lead back again like he was last year.
Mm-hmm.
Coleman would probably mix in, but he might not have a great role.
Takes the Tyler Bidet role or whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
Which is nothing, essentially.
They have McLaughlin or whatever stashed. He kind of mixes it, whatever it is. And, that could just be like, yeah, you drafted Audric Estime, actually. It's like,
oh, God. Oh, no.
Yeah.
That fucking... Oh, that was not... That was... Talk about staying in the ring. I somebody yelled at me in the crowd and I turned away and I let somebody just hit me right.
I just steel chaired your ass.
I'm arguing with the ref. I had you pinned down. I thought I got the 3 count and I went over to the ref and you fucking just came over with the chair right to the gut. Oh, Estime, that hurt. That one cut me deep. Jesus Christ. Oh shit! I was not ready. I was like, "Yep, okay, yep, he's going good," and then just like, "Oh." Oh man, you could have used any other fucking name. That one hurt.
It's a Denver running back. Well, not anymore.
Yeah. Is he back on the Saints? Is he technically on the Saints still? I don't know, man. It also hurt me when he was getting him and dude. This is such a full circle moment. At the end of the year for the Saints, when everybody was hurt and they shut it down, the backfield was a timeshare between Evan Hull and Audric Estime. And they're scoring more fantasy points than the slapdick late running backs that I drafted. Like Deneric, the only thing that could have made it worse is if it was a 3-way split with Deneric.
But then you think you're finally going to get paid off, and then Carson Steele snipes for the touchdown.
They signed Steele off the practice squad. And he's taking the goal line work. I got it in between the 20s. Audric Estime on the fucking Saints. Oh shit! I hate this podcast episode so much. It's like, oh, remember Jordan Mason and Kyren and whatever, and then also remember Audric Estime, you moron.
Evan Hall is such a good one too.
God,
I loved Evan Hall.
Oh shit, me too.
But like Chris Evans, we did remember Chris Evans, and then
I think he was one of the first where we were like, and we've been doing this for 5 years of Samaje Perine, where it's just like we're so sick
Gretchen,
of Samaje
I remember
Perine.
in Vegas, which means it's late. We're like lit because we'd go out to Vegas every year.
End of August, the beginning
September.
Of
It was September because it was the week of the game. We're drafting. We would draft that Thursday, the night. Then that night would be the Thursday night football game, and then we would draft Friday and Saturday. So you're drafting literally after the season has started. And Gretch was like, "Guys, it's Perine. Like Perine is clearly the RB2." And this was before I'd like fully gotten on board with what I'm saying. Like, I mean, to be honest, I'm still trying to get fully on board because it's not as fun as betting on the fun players. But the Perine thing of like, guys, Perine won the job. Like he is the RB2. He is the correct play here. Mm-hmm. And I remember that because I was like, oh no. Like the feeling of like Gretch is right. And I didn't draft Chris Evans I didn't draft Perine like once, and I've only drafted Chris Evans. And so those types of guys, it's like, they're fun, but like even in redraft, I mean, we're talking about the main event. That's redraft. Perine was the correct answer at that point. But in best ball with the roster's lock, like, man, you don't want to just like have the guy who's more fun that never really plays as a rookie. And it's like, hey, you can also be right, but maybe be right later. You know?
Yep.
Be right in year 2. Be right when he actually gets an opportunity, because guys who hit in huge ways, like a Kyren, like a Miles Gaskin, who was a year 2 guy, they don't do anything as rookies sometimes. So you just have to, for those plays where it's, you know, kind of more like, are you the RB2 or not? I mean, and we're talking about like with Chris Evans. Chris Evans was behind Joe Mixon. He wasn't taking Joe Mixon's job.
Exactly.
No one thought that. We're like,
Exactly.
oh, but he'd be really fun if he's the pass catching RB2. Well, he wasn't at all.
Mm-hmm.
He barely played that year. So he just wasted the roster spot.
It's like you said earlier, you know, it's not a parlay anymore. And I thought that was just like a really good way to put it. It's still so, you know, if anybody bets, like you're still betting home run props or whatever, right? Like 5-1, 6-1, 7-1, right? You're betting on like, I might bet on, you know, Jordan Walker fresh off of his home run derby championship to hit a home run tonight, right? At 4.5 to 1 or whatever. It's like, that's still a long shot. It's probably not going to work, but it doesn't mean it was a bad bet. But doing the Evan Hall and the Chris Evans is like parlaying home run props. Right. Not only do you need to, now I parlayed Jordan Walker plus JJ Weatherholt plus Alec Burleson, you know, plus Kyle Schwarber or whatever.
Yeah,
you know,
3 home runs, and I'm halfway there, baby.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's like, okay, I got the 3 home runs, which were all in and of themselves like 15% to happen. I got those, and I still need this other thing. You know what I mean? You needed to be right that he's good. You needed to be right that he's the backup. You needed to be right. Not right. I'm not saying you're speculating, but then Joe Mixon needs to get hurt.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, dude, that's the thing. I still struggle with it because, like you said, I like fun. You know, I do. There is an element of like I do like to take the fun players, but I think I've gotten a lot better at that, among many other issues that I continue to try to get better at in best ball. But it's that, and it's really just that simple. It's like, would you rather need to hit 1 5-1 thing or 3 of them? You know, that seems pretty straightforward to me. And I just
also, it's like not always. I think what we do sometimes is we're like, yeah, but the payoff's bigger when I hit this parlay, and it's like not even clear that that's true. The Kerrane actually was the bigger payoff play because he's a
wildly
overvalued guy.
Do we overvalue? I think we're just wrong. I think we're just straight up wrong on those.
Yeah,
most
I think
of the
we're
time.
wrong a lot. Yeah,
it's like we are because we think and oftentimes it's the mystery box, right? It's the young mystery box. And this happened this morning where somebody asked me about my Jonathan Brooks ranking, and I'm actually a little behind ADP on Jonathan.
He's moved up a lot.
The rise. It's not that I don't like him; it's that I can't keep up with this meteoric rise. But someone asked me about that, and I was just like, it's not that I dislike him. I like him fine. Look, I have him ranked in a spot that clearly indicates that I like the guy. But I was like, I think, you know, someone said something about the upside, right? They're just like, but the upside is so much higher. And I'm not saying it isn't high for Jonathan Brooks, but I think what happens is the mystery box makes us evaluate something that we think is that is 5-1, right? To use this same home run analogy, because it's so weird and unknown, and it's this young player we don't have a track record of. We think the 5-1 thing is really like 15-1, and it's like you're betting a 5-1 prop. You should treat it as a 5-1 prop, but we talk about it like it's like a fucking insane parlay that's 1,000,000-1 or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like the payoff. The payoff is this crazy thing, and it's like I think we're really wrong. We get really excited and overvalue what the payoff actually is most of the time. Sometimes not, you know, sometimes not, but the most of the time, right? It's like Chris F. Like, what really was the fucking payoff?
What was the point
on Chris Evans? Like, really?
No, and I think with those types, if the price rises, I would like, and I'm still in on Brooks now, although I think I may be behind on him in the ranks as well. But it's like one of those things where if I need the running back,
exactly,
I'm still taking him.
Static rankings versus how you should draft are just so different, and it's really brutal to talk about most of the time.
Yeah, but I actually am a little. Well, no, these are my main events. And he's in the 7th round there.
Jesus Christ.
You won the 6th in the main event we did on Tuesday.
Oh my God.
I have fallen behind though in best ball.
Me too. It's like,
but I
okay,
literally
so
took him probably like 10 picks ahead of ADP this morning because I needed a running back. So
it just means instead of I'll pretty much take him whenever, it depends on what is happening with my team, you know, to like, oh, you're 6 picks behind the guy. It's like, it's 6 picks. Like that can change based upon the team that I'm drafting.
Yeah, you're right. Exactly. So anyway, but the thing with Brooks that I like about him and why I think the rise has been good and does make a lot of sense, although, you know, you can get to a point where he would be too expensive, but it's less about what the payoff is and more about the odds of him hitting have gone up.
Agreed.
And that he's always had a path to production without an injury ahead of him, which is just this year especially feels hard to find. Like who can just at running back that is, you know, relatively cheap, who can just take a job. He's like still one of the prime candidates that, you know, is anywhere near pick 100. So, you know, of course you have the ambiguous backfields in Minnesota and Washington. And maybe that would be a case of like, hey, you're like hoping this guy could be the starter, but like Rachaad White's probably more clearly a starter or Bill. Like it's probably one of those two, unless
it's sort of them in tandem. That's what makes that one kind of weird, is that it's like,
I do think Kerrane makes really tough too.
Yeah, in the traditional sense, there's not like you know, this isn't like this is RB1, this is they have like sort of role. It's like
Minnesota's probably cleaner that way.
Yeah.
I'm not a Claiborne guy, so I think it's probably just those two guys.
Me too. I moved Jordan Mason up recently, specifically on Underdog. I still like Aaron Jones, but I've recently moved up. So like,
I mean, there is a Brooks could be anything. He could even be Jordan Mason kind of thing. Which would suck.
Dude, that's literally what I said this morning. That it's still fucking hilarious that you just this morning someone was, because I have them right next to each other, Jordan Mason and Jonathan Brooks. I did a rankings update stream, and so I was like, I moved Mason up specific to Underdog because of course, you know, he's caught like 26 passes in his career or whatever, so DraftKings and drafters are a little bit more difficult. And while apparently Underdog, Hayden Winks leaves and they turn into a fucking PPR site. I guess Hayden doesn't have his influence anymore about keeping them saying half point PPRs the best form of fantasy football. But anyway, that's what I was like,
that is actually funny. Yeah,
I feel like Jordan Mason's talent, because of how just disastrously bad the Vikings offensive season went last year, from JJ McCarthy being, you know, fucking Uncle Rico out there playing quarterback, to Wentz playing, to Max Brosmer playing, to like, it was just so bad, right? It all went so horribly. I think how good Jordan Mason is as a runner specifically has just been completely lost on people. I'm like, Aaron Jones was bad as a runner. He's 32 years old and he got hurt again. I understand it was weird. The season was weird. Mason was like not playing a ton down the stretch, which is kind of what happens when you're an early down runner in a split backfield and your team fucking sucks. Like there was a game where they ran the ball like 15 times and JJ McCarthy threw 42 passes, you know, and he completed like 19 or whatever it was. Like it, you know, so Aaron Jones is going to be out there more during those times. It was weird. I'm not saying it last season was great or anything like that, but if you look under the hood at Jordan Mason, that stretch with San Francisco was incredible. 300-yard games in the first 4 weeks of the season, was like one of the leading rushers in the NFL when he got hurt in week 7. And last year, amidst the house he is that the girl with the house burning down behind her meme, or the guy, I guess, maybe in the corner of like, this is fine, it's all burning down around me. He was awesome, like from the metric perspective, like the counting stats don't.
I think JJ McCarthy was the girl.
Yeah, JJ McCarthy is the girl.
This is his fault, kind of.
Jordan Mason, you know, is going to the sink and trying to put out this house fire with like little buckets of water. You know, or anyway, he averaged like 4.8 yards per carry, which is obviously not an advanced metric. He was in the top 15 in like every rushing metric you could imagine: missed tackles forced per attempt, success rate, EPA per play, explosive runs, which you would not expect. For like, he was better than Bijan Robinson in explosive runs. Like, I'm not saying he's better than those guys. I'm just saying his performance last season was like legitimately good given the circumstances. And so that was sort of what I was like, yeah, Jonathan Brooks, we can dream about that. He might even be Jordan Mason as a runner. You know what I mean? So that somebody asked, why do you have them next to each other? It seems like Jonathan Brooks should be, your kind of guy. And I'm like, well, he is my kind of guy, but it turns
he can
out
catch the ball more. So
exactly.
I think that
it's the receiving.
He does have more upside, but there is an element of like, yeah, Jordan Mason can actually like more easily be a starter really than Brooks. You don't have to like have this whole, and he's healthy and he's good. Like the second round pick was actually a good pick. Cause I mean, second round picks bust at running back,
Yeah.
And
he was a good, fun, exciting prospect, but
yeah,
he's not
good now.
He wasn't Jonathan Taylor,
No.
He's torn his ACL twice and barely played in the NFL. And like I said, he was a good prospect, not a like superstar,
not an amazing one. Yeah.
This isn't Brees, this isn't JT or anything like that.
I mean, I think, and this is partly because of draft capital, but I think he came out my stuff similar to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It could not work.
100%. And I think
they weren't comps for each other, but they were in the same tier, I believe.
Exactly. So I'm not trying to make this into a slander Jonathan Brooks thing, but I think like the point, right, about
Brooks
a lot of
came out a tier higher actually, but still
is these
same tier as Rashad Penny.
That's interesting. Funnily enough, a kind of similar situation to tell you how the market has shifted. That year, the year Liam won, Pete and I also did really well that year in BBM. We were in the top 10 and had Rashad Penny on the team. You needed Amon-Ra that year. You needed Jamar Chase, Rashad Penny, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. There were three. Like, if you don't have these guys, good fucking luck winning.
And then Mark Andrews had been the guy you needed to get there, but then wasn't in 2017, right?
Yeah. We had Kyle. I'll never forget this. Fucking Kyle Pitts has been killing me every single. He killed me in a bad way last year by not having enough when he went for $1 million in the fantasy playoffs, and then that year, Kyle Pitts in like the first quarter has like 75 receiving yards or something like that, and me and Pete are texting just like, dude, is Kyle Pitts really about to do? Is this about to happen? Like, this is crazy. And he pulled his fucking hamstring because it was outdoors in Buffalo at Christmas time in this soft ass SEC.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's that year you needed those guys, but Rashad Penny was a former first round pick who we all thought was talented, but had Chris Carson ahead of him on the Seahawks. And injured, like he didn't tear his ACL twice, but Penny had been hurt, and I think he got hurt.
He broke his leg.
Yeah,
right?
And then he had constant hamstring issues. I believe he had hamstring issues over the summer.
It was over. Like we were like, it's over. It's not happening.
He went from like, we're still believing this talent. Let's like take him in the 13th, 14th round range. A little cheaper than Brooks, but the premise was the same. Like, is Chris Carson really that good? This guy might just be better than him. Blah blah blah. And so then the summer doesn't go very well for Rashad Penny, as tends to be the case. And by the time the season got here, he was like in the very last rounds. And then that frankly proved to be true. He came out, he played a little bit at the start behind Chris Carson and got hurt again. He missed the majority of the season.
He was the RB2 though, right? So we did get the
right. Exactly.
He was contingent play in the final round kind of thing.
He turned into to this.
Yeah.
Is that right?
He got cheap.
He was fancy Zach Moss behind Chris Carson. But Chris Carson gets hurt right before the fantasy playoffs. And Rashad Penny gets healthy right before the fantasy playoffs. And he takes the whole job
sick, man.
And was the RB1 in fantasy over he was like RB1, RB2, RB1 week by week in the fantasy playoffs. And you just had to have him at his price. So obviously Jonathan Brooks is much more expensive, but that's sort of like another version of how these, like, we got confirmation. It's Chris Carson and then it's Rashad Penny. I know this is gross. I know he's been hurt. I know he's burned you, but we got that information. And even though it didn't go well for 14 weeks, 15, 16, 17 were so good. And it's again, because we got that information. Look, I know that this isn't going great, but he like, what did you say before? Like, no, he's our guy. He can play. We like him as our RB2, even though it hadn't gone well in his career to that point.
And this is why I draft some Marshawn Lloyd.
Yeah.
He hasn't done anything either, but he's so cheap. I mean, Brooks, look, if Brooks comes out of training camp and we're like, yeah, he's the RB2, the team trusts him to be the RB2, but he's not going to have much of a role. Then, like, don't feel so good about like the 8th round Jonathan Brooks picks, but Marshawn Lloyd still like 15th, 16th round now, and you can, I started taking him in the 18th. You still get him in the 18th sometimes, and I think he's the RB2 in Green Bay. And if like I have to pay 15th round prices when I know for sure that he's the RB2 in Green Bay, cool. You do have, the potential for Jacobs to get suspended and miss some time. So, that's kind of an additional sort of contingent factor. And then
do you think do you think there's a non-zero chance that he can just not like take Jacobs' job to like our points before, but like step in and like the Monungai thing is like Swift was not an insurmountable talent.
Like Kyren.
Right? I don't think Josh Jacobs is an insurmountable
who's more
talent.
Trusted, really? Like if you're like just gonna put like I trust this guy rankings, Kyren and Sean McVay. Like Sean McVay trusts Kyren.
Yeah.
Sometimes to have like a ton of juice, Kyren.
Yeah. Sometimes to a fault. He loves Kyren like it's his son.
Sometimes to a fault with Josh Jacobs and LaFleur. I could see Jacobs not getting like beaten out by Lloyd. That's not happening, obviously. But I could see, it wouldn't be quite the same flavor as the Corum thing, but a little Corum-y, a little Tank Bigsby to ETN, where it's like, look, this guy is a nice complementary runner, and he's starting to get more work because he's playing well. Like it doesn't, the starter isn't changing. I don't think there's much chance of that because it really comes down to how much Lloyd has at this point. He was, I think, a significantly weaker prospect than Jonathan Brooks, and
absolutely
has done literally nothing at all like Brooks. I mean, that's the thing they share in common is the worst thing that we haven't seen them. But it's certainly possible. I mean, he's a big guy. He's 220 pounds. He's athletic. He could be like a kind of a fun downhill, kind of a guy who you think might like catch the ball, but probably doesn't. It's sort of just like a big speed runner dude. Not to shiv you again, but kind of Kendre Miller-esque.
I was prepared. Thank you for the Thank you for this was, you at least tapped me before you hit me with the chair. You tapped me on the shoulder first, so I at least had like it was on me. If I didn't tense my core, it was my fault.
I did. I told you, hey, I'm gonna punch you in the gut here.
Yeah, you didn't throw sand in my face and then hit me. At least you tapped me this time, but that one did. I loved Kendra. R.I.P. He was playing well last year too. Before
Before Audric Estime and Evan Hall took over.
Before they considered signing Deneric Burns, he actually looked pretty good. R.I.P. King.
Anyway, I have to jump here in a minute because I'm doing another stream, but
this is just super quick. I know we talked a ton about the running backs. Can we spend just like 30 seconds about some of the late wide receivers? Because I think it's sort of the same, but the opposite, as weird as that sounds, right? Where we're talking a lot about the running backs and like we're like, it's not the profile means nothing, but we really need to really keep our ears peeled and listen to the teams and read this stuff and read between the lines, blah blah blah. But the wide receivers is like I do still really care about the profile.
It's the profiles there.
I care when they're like running with the ones, but going back to the Ravens stuff, it's like I care that they're running with the ones, but also like the profile, like you're just not going to convince me, right, that like all of a sudden XYZ guy has a good profile and I want to bet on him because I need performance on the field, not just being the next man up.
It's like
wide receiver,
draft capital, base rate, profile, and price. Those are the three things. So like I took a bunch of Ricky Pearsall the year that Ricky Pearsall got shot because he was cheap and he was still a first round pick and he looked like he would, he was recovering and going to play. Then he has an awesome week 17, which, I'm very lucky it was week 17, not 18 or so was the guy who won Best Ball Mania with him. But, we could have been week 13 and then he gets hurt and doesn't, so it's like it is. But like also, he's a first round pick that they were going to want to get a look at to see what they had heading into year 2. Like that's kind of how this stuff works sometimes. It doesn't mean it's definitely going to happen in the fantasy championship game, of course, but you're like, hey, this is really cheap for a first round pick. And that's how I feel with Omar Cooper. Like, I don't really need to hear a lot more about Omar Cooper. If Omar Cooper's behind, I don't even know who their other slot would be.
I have honestly no idea.
Yeah. If he's behind, if they bring back Malachi Corley and play him ahead of Omar Cooper, that would be
Isaiah
concerning.
Williams.
Isaiah Williams plays ahead of Omar Cooper. That I would find that a little distressing. I'd probably want a little bit more of a discount. But if you're telling me I can get 16th round Cooper now, cool. I'm in. I'm going to be in on Jeremy Bernard basically regardless, because
he's running behind Roman Wilson right now.
I don't care. I truly don't care. He was their second round pick. By the end of the season, he'll be ahead of Roman Wilson. It's Roman fucking Wilson. Yep. He'll be ahead of him, you know? Antonio Williams, I don't feel as good about because he was a third round pick. I don't think the prospect profile was very good. But
there's also free agency concerns.
There's free agency concerns. But if we get through training camp and they haven't signed anyone, and you know, I'm starting to take some Williams also because he's falling. I think he got kind of priced up as like he's going to be this immediate wide receiver too, and that does not seem to be happening.
No.
So I think like he'd be behind De'Ami Brown or Traylon Burks right now. It's not great.
I angrily added Traylon Burks into my top.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. That's an angry ad. But you know, you get Antonio Williams in the truly in the late rounds, in that kind of like Ted Hurst range. It makes sense to me. Chris Brazzell, like that kind of range. And I'm just like, I'm going to be mixing in those guys as like just bets on the profiles. If I hear with those third round picks, if I hear they're kind of starting to look buried, I'll move off of that more quickly than the second round picks. Jeremy Bernard was their second round pick, and I think kind of an interesting profile, especially from like could contribute early in his career kind of thing. Like he probably pro ready style guy, especially for the ability to get the ball on
his profile
shallow targets.
Is, when he hits, his profile is he's a professional wide receiver.
Yeah. And someone who can get targeted out of the slot, you know, earn targets at a high rate per route, maybe not be the most like impactful guy downfield, but that's like the Steelers' problem, not mine. Brazzell and Hurst are more like
DK Metcalf is for.
That's what DK Metcalf is for.
Why else do you have that dude on your team?
Hurst and Brazzell are more like field stretchers where they could, and then like they could be like rotational, and it could just not be very fantasy friendly. So if I were to hear like, they're not the wide receiver threes, or, you know, with Hurst, it's like a little bit more like he could be the wide receiver 3/4, and I'm still in. But with Brazzell, if like they're like, Leggett is ahead of Brazzell, and I'd come off of that play a bit because third round capital, those guys do sometimes hit more in year two. Like Nico Collins didn't really hit till. I mean, he hit sort of in year two, and then obviously broke out in a huge way in year three. But the year two hit I'd take, but he didn't do that as a rookie. It was
exactly
so that's where I want to be a little more cautious that I'm not drafting Jalen Hyatt, you know, with those guys. Right now I'm fine, but that's where I would be quicker to get nervous on those guys than like on a Bernard, for example. So it does come back. It does come to the profiles of these receivers to a much bigger extent. There is some opportunity related plays like with Surratt and Jacoby Lane. I think that is very opportunity related. And we should mention the profiles I like, but like the fact that they could be the wide receiver 2 by the end of the season on the Ravens is a huge part of it. And then we should obviously say like Puka gave us one of the biggest kind of drumbeat campaigns of all time before becoming Puka. So I do not want to ignore that stuff. On the other hand, Deontay Thornton may be last year's biggest wide receiver drumbeat.
Yes.
So you know, you got to be careful with this stuff and go into the profile of Puka. Credible yards per route run, but never stayed healthy in college. Deontay Thornton, I remember talking, you know, I was like, look, this dude's making noise. It's pretty wide open.
Had great yards per route run, and you could. It was so easy to convince yourself and overlook like 47 red flags, and just be like,
did he have
great
yards
listen
per
to
route
this
run?
drumbeat? He was
good yards per reception, I think.
It was good yards per route run because he didn't fucking run very many. He was a rotational boundary wide receiver at 10. He had like 40 something targets, dude. Like he was Tyquan Thornton. It looks like
you're right. He did have 3.72 yards per hour in the final season.
Tyquan Thornton looks like a superstar target earner compared to Dante Thornton. He was just a guy who hit home runs. He was not a full-time wide receiver. He was a field stretcher in the Tennessee gimmick bullshit offense that hits those home runs. He happened to be on the right Tennessee team, and he is the right archetype, and he hit those home runs. Right? It's like it was Jalen Hyatt won the Biletnikoff, so it's not the same comp, but it's that offense tricked tricked me, tricked everyone. It tricked the fucking Raiders into thinking that this guy is better than and like you said, he got all this hype. He rose up from the 18th round to way, way, way higher than that. It wasn't a Marquez Callaway situation where we went.
No, but he was
18th,
like a 15th round or something like that.
But it was steamy, and it's a good and I think it's a good example of one where you're like, if you don't actually do the digging and you're looking at the profile from a confirmation bias perspective, then you'll find what you wanted in the profile. It's another thing where we're like, oh, let's look at the profile. It's like, well, he was really efficient, right? But if I don't dig a little bit on the profile, I won't find the flaws that are the real red flag flaws about this and why the hype can be a little misleading.
And I will say, like, I drafted some Deontay Thornton. I don't totally regret it. Obviously, I didn't think it was become Puka, but I thought, hey, this guy is going to be a starter, and maybe that works out. And I think it's okay to go like, I'm hearing this guy I'm starting to hear a drumbeat. I'm starting to get a little bit interested. Brashard Smith would be an example of this, I think, where it's like, all right, this dude looks like he's going to be the running back 2 for the Chiefs. And like at that time, he was. They end up bringing back Kareem Hunt, right? Or was Hunt already there? I think they brought back Kareem Hunt, right?
This is when all this offseason stuff was a mess for the Chiefs. Hunt was not on the team.
Right.
They did it. They did it because, to go back to they had the practice. They gave everyone all of these tryouts, and they were like,
and then they're like, nah, we're bringing back Kareem Hunt. It's
none of them are here.
Yeah. So you go with, look, Smith's looking like the guy that's like the RB2. He catches passes. You take some Smith, but then you kind of keep checking in. And is like Brashard Smith going to be a huge part of what you do? You don't have to double and triple down. You can be like, well, probably not. And like, as I did Deontay Thornton, and then I'm like talking to people, and everyone's like, nah, dude, this guy straight up can't fucking play. Like, he sucks. And it's like, all right, well, I'm not going to like hammer Deontay Thornton just because he's like standing out compared to Jack Besh in camp. As it turns out, it meant Jack Besh sucks, you know? So I think it's fine to be like, all right, I'm going to draft this dude. But I'm going to keep gathering information. And then, oh, yeah, I should probably stop drafting this guy. Like, I'm not getting any more kind of positive information. Like, it's not like this continued nonstop drumbeat. It's just like, no, yeah, he's probably the wide receiver 2 on the outside. Or, he strung some early practices. We hear this all the time, too. Like, this guy looked so good when training camp opened, but he hasn't really stood out so much since.
Yep.
We hear that a lot. So that's fine. Like, I don't think it's bad to be like, when he was really standing out in training camp, I started drafting him some. I didn't go crazy, but I started mixing him in, and then we just haven't heard so much since. So I'm pulling off of that take, and I'm moving to this other guy. And the trick that I've found is finding some other player to get excited about gets you off of the player that you were excited about before,
I think that's the way to do it.
Yeah, because if you tell yourself, no, I was wrong and I shouldn't have drafted him, that your brain just doesn't do that very well. It's better to go, I'm right, and I've always been right, and I'll always be right in the future. And the thing I'm most right about now is this new player that I'll draft instead of this other player. And that's how you admit to yourself that you probably burned about 10 puppies on a player who won't matter.
Exactly. Whether or not it's I guess it is healthy, but whether or not it is a great approach, the mental health hacks can absolutely work. And I think it's the perfect place to leave this, the sort of Deontay Thornton thing, where I could not possibly agree more. It's like what we talked about before. You got to stand in the ring and take some body blows. And ultimately, and I don't think it was wrong to chase Deontay to take, like you said,
for a time, right? And then you're kind of go like, this is probably not going to work.
Like you said, check back in, look for new guys, follow all the other stuff, and then kind of like you have to be able to delineate between Deontay Thornton hype and Puka Nacua hype, and like it's because the Puka one, you're just like you never take your foot off the gas. You're like, no, this is it. Right. And you have to be able to delineate between Zach Moss, like we talked about before, and Jordan Mason and Kyren Williams. And
Zach Moss and Jordan Mason were hits.
But you know what I mean? Like differentiate between the like, okay, I'm taking this guys because they finally decided this, or I should have said Kyren, right? Where it's like, because the Jordan Mason thing was also like, dude, CMC just flew to Germany because of his cat, right? That was part of the German.
That's right, dude.
Jonathan Taylor was not hurt. Jonathan Taylor was still Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah.
He got hurt.
Great point.
Christian McCaffrey was not practicing, and then he tried to come back to practice, and he got hurt again.
Finding that RB2 was important.
It was
and
super
it became
important.
increasingly clear it was important.
CMC was heading into the season hurt.
Forgot about the Germany thing,
right?
Yeah.
And then Kyren was like we need to find this because this Cam Akers thing seems like really explosive. So differentiating between I found the handcuff and that's great, or I might have found the key to the season, right? Yeah. And that's Dante Thornton is like, I might have found a useful late round rookie here that I want to take, or did I find the key to the season? And I think
and at that point you can chase it up too, like with JCM.
Exactly.
Like I was fine chasing. Now it gets to a certain point where you're like, oh, this is too much. But he was in the 18th. I didn't have a ton. Like, okay, great. Then draft the shit out of him in the 15th. Just have a big old bag in the 15th. Like, and that's how I kind of handle Brooks now. Where like Brooks is my highest drafted running back, not because I'm hammering him today, although you still do draft some of them. But I missed the best Brooks price, but I got a bunch of Brooks in the hundreds. I think Brooks is a really good pick now. At like 115, I'm gonna take him a lot, and I don't care. I'm not gonna like sit this out because other people have 140 and I have like I'll just have a lot more 115 than the guy who had 140, because maybe the guy who has 140 is like, I'm good. I have my Brooks. I don't need to chase him up. Like, great, because what if Brooks is the dude you need? I bet if I've got like, twice as many Brooks teams as someone who got cheaper prices, I'd take my position when he never got that expensive.
It's my biggest gripe with the price stuff, or the CLV stuff, I should say, where people be like, oh, look at my team. I got my look at all this CLV. And it's like that's good. No one is arguing that it's not good, but it's like, so how many teams do you have? And they're like, well, I got 4 Brooks teams or whatever. I'm like, brother, you could draft 150 and you don't make the finals, but once a decade. Like you got 4 teams. Like it's so fucking meaningless. Like the raw count actually does matter. Now, I'm not
who he's with matters so much more than the price.
Exactly. Congratulations.
I mean, unless he was a 4th round pick versus you got him in the 140s, sure. But
that's like, and that happens. Like that was speaking of Cam Akers, that was the Darrell Henderson for anybody.
Darrell Henderson,
right? You can get the guy who's going in the 14th, and he ends up in the 4th round because the guy in front of him gets hurt.
Right.
A real full circle moment, bringing up also
truly.
That didn't work.
Didn't work in either price.
15th round Darrell Henderson was fucking useless that season, which is really funny because I had a whole big bag. But we're gonna get out of here. Everybody enjoy the rest of your weekend, and hopefully this helps getting ready for training camp. It helped me to get ready for training camp because it's about, by the next time we record, we'll be kicking off a whole different version of what the fantasy football season looks like. So again, enjoy your weekend, and we'll catch you guys next week.